Hey guys, it's your favorite redheads, Alyssa
and Hannah.
And we are so excited to be here with you. Hannah, I feel like I'm coming down with something though. What is it?
Ooh, that is not good. Could it be
main character syndrome? All right, we all know what main character syndrome is. It's basically being the protagonist in your life and your whole story. Of course, we are all main characters.
Mm-hmm. Specifically, you and I, if I do say so myself.
Absolutely.
I do want to call attention to my sweatshirt.
Yes,
Not only is this from a certified fan shop, it is officially licensed SJM Massverse merch. It is also from a women-owned, locally sourced, sustainably produced, all of these things that we want to see in our purchases. It is that.
Yes, girl. We love that. Tell us what it says.
We've got Illyrian Dreams here on the front. We do have some bat wings.
We got the bat wings.
And let me just go ahead and show you the back if you could read it to the people because I don't remember what it says.
It says Starfall. Of course,
Yeah,
I'll
baby.
dance with you. Oh my God, I need this right now.
Isn't that so sweet?
I need this right now.
And this is actually the same shop. It's Hello Live Co. on TikTok and on Instagram.
Oh, I've heard of her.
She's amazing. I do know her personally, and that is my claim to fame. She was a photographer in the Springfield area before she moved away to Nashville and then started this fan shop. And she has some of the most amazing merch. She has everything from the Massverse. She has Fourth Wing. I think she has Star Wars as well.
Oh.
And I want to say she has something else. Maybe she has Harry Potter. Duh.
So, of course. You can't
has so
have a
many
fan
amazing
fiction merchandise without Harry Potter.
I think she even has some Hermione stuff, which is amazing.
Hermione, oh my gosh.
Not only do I have this sweatshirt, but I have a whole set of ACOTAR pajamas. They're purple, and they have like the cutest pattern. So
I want some.
Happy shopping, everyone.
Hey, Livco.
Yeah.
You got some new customers.
Sponsor us. No, it's amazing. So this is actually like one of those comfortable sweatshirts, but it is only fitting for today's topic.
No, for sure. And today's topic is A Court of
ACOTAR.
Thorns and Roses, which is also known as ACOTAR. So
Yes.
if you're wondering, you're watching Book Talk, you're like, oh my gosh, what is ACOTAR? It is A Court of Thorns and Roses.
Yep,
It
yep.
is by Sarah J. Maas, and it's the queen herself.
Yes, this is what has gotten everyone into this new wave of book talk, of reading, and this is what has made reading arguably the hottest thing since, what was the hottest thing before this?
Twilight?
Yeah.
Honestly, in our
has been it.
generation, this is the hottest thing since probably Twilight.
And what's crazy is to think that this is going to raise as many people as Twilight and Harry Potter did in our generation, which on the one hand, I'm like, questionable, because at least Harry Potter and Twilight, you had to like seek out the spice. The spice is actually included in these books, which I think is beautiful. But to think about the fact that I would have devoured this book if I were, 12 years old. Concerning? No, actually.
Okay, excuse me. We all read things that we were not supposed to.
We had access to the internet.
We had access to the internet.
Unrestricted access to the internet.
Exactly.
Let's not act like I'm not going to be the morality police. I would have done it. And I am. Actually, you know what? I am. So
There were some questionable books that I found in the library that I was like, oh, I don't think a 13-year-old's probably supposed to read this.
You
And
know
I
what?
don't think they really moderated it.
they did not. And you know what? It's education.
It is education.
It's research. We were doing discovery.
Honestly,
We were
you'll
doing
find,
discovery.
I heard worse on the school bus.
You could read the American Girl Me book, or you could read some of the books that were in our junior high library. And you know what? One is more fun than the other one.
I'm sure.
No complaints from me, but A Court of Thorns and Roses is something that we have talked about ad nauseum to each other offline. I have consumed so many content pieces. We have sent probably 4,000 different TikToks and Reels back and forth to each other.
I swear, at least.
And I'm not tired of it.
I'm not tired of
I'm
it.
not
If
sick
you're
of
not
it.
tired of it, I'm going to keep them coming.
Keep them coming. And you know what is amazing about you? They
What?
all come after midnight.
I know. Oh my gosh. I
Almost
was
every
the
single one.
worst at the TikTok rabbit hole.
Or
and
the
it's
best.
like 2 a.m. and I'm just like, oh my God, Hannah, I'm sending you all of these. And you'll just wake up with
Yep.
like 25 new
Meanwhile,
notifications.
my phone's on Do Not Disturb. I'm on AO3. I'm swiping up. I'm like, nope, I'll look at that in the morning. I'm so entrenched in whatever story I'm reading. Who even cares? Guess what? We can have multiple passions. We've talked about this many times. We can love Fourth Wing. We can love Xaden. We can love Rhysand. We can love all of these people.
As we should, because they're all amazing.
Because we are multifaceted women. We are capable of thinking and loving multiple things at once.
Including book boyfriends.
And you know what, my real life husband, great as well. But for the sake of this,
But does he have bat wings?
unfortunately, no.
Exactly.
Womp, womp.
Womp,
Oh, well.
womp. Sorry, Austin.
Oh, well, he doesn't listen to this anyways, so we can say what we want. Would you like to go through a list of your favorite characters?
Oh my goodness. Obviously, let's start with Rhysand.
Let's start there.
Oh, Shadow Daddy.
I feel like it's concerning the way that I didn't even think about him in the first book and how much he obviously comes to mean to everyone. Spoiler alert, later in the series. But I heard about him online, and I think that's how I knew that he would matter. Obviously, I had been exposed to book talk prior to reading the actual books, but whenever I read it and I read the scene where he says, "Oh, there you are, I've been looking for you," the iconic scene, I didn't even know what that would come to mean to me.
Nobody did.
And
nobody saw that coming.
Chills when I go back and reread it. I'm like, oh my gosh, Taylor Swift Mastermind's playing in the background. Everything is for a reason. It was so beautiful. But whenever I first read it, I was like, who is this guy? Like, get out of here. Where's
because
Cameron?
every story needed a villain.
Yes.
And Rhysand was that villain. You know, she was scared of him.
Yeah,
he
he's
went
evil.
into her mind a little bit and like made her terrified just so she'd believe. But spoiler alert, he actually is a main character.
Yeah. And I will never speak ill of Sarah J. Maas because of how beautifully she positioned all of these people and like how everything plays out to the point where I'm like, did she map this out? She must have one of those walls where there's red thread connecting all of these dots. Like how could she have done this off the cuff? This has to have been planned out for decades in advance. And I just think she's so brilliant. And it's one of those things that, not to speak ill of Stephanie Meyer because I didn't even read the book, so I can't speak to it, but when Twilight was at its peak, people were saying she's not a good author, you know, her writing is cheesy, there's all these plot holes, X, Y, and Z. You can't say that about SJM.
No.
She is so brilliant. I think her writing is beautiful. Does she reuse a couple phrases? I could do with a few fewer watery bowel references.
Yep.
Few.
There's a C word that is used quite a bit in Silver Flames.
Quite a bit.
Quite a bit.
I could use a few fewer vulgar gestures.
Yep.
Are we just talking about the bird? Are we flipping the bird every time?
Apparently.
That's my question. I'm wondering if I'm the only person who's not comprehending this, but every time they say a vulgar gesture, and then sometimes she'll throw in a particularly vulgar gesture, I'm like, are we talking about the finger every time?
I think they're flipping each other off.
That's
but
what I
maybe
thought.
there's like an Illyrian hand sign that
Are we making
is
it like
F off?
That's what I'm wondering. Is it the same thing? Because what makes one particularly vulgar and one not? One is like standard vulgarity. Anyways, I think she's still an incredible author.
Oh my gosh, I seriously, wholeheartedly believe she is like the Taylor Swift of all authors.
Yes,
she is a mastermind.
And she's so passionate, which I think is, again, the Taylor Swift effect. Whenever someone is so deeply entrenched in their own work, and like you can tell she loves her characters and she wants to develop them, and she feels this attachment to their storyline, which translates to the way she writes them, which translates to the readers, and why we care so much about everything that she puts out, because it's not something she's doing as a cash grab. Obviously, she's going above and beyond.
You can tell she loves her characters.
Yes, and she cares so much about the world that they live in, and she really goes. I mean, even in Crescent City, she goes into detail that she does not have to go into.
And spoiler alert, she ties the books together.
I know. The fact, like, I'm so blown away by all of this. I can't even fathom creating a universe like this out of nothing.
Like, you've never read Throne of Glass either, but she ties that to it in ACOTAR. And I'm like, not like Crescent City, but just a little bit.
Well, you guys are going to get to experience me reading it for the first time. Alyssa has already done her homework, and
I am so excited for the
she's read all
live reactions.
I haven't read it. I have the first 3 books, and I wanted to read them, but I just went through ACOTAR, right into Fourth Wing, right into Crescent City, and I want to go back and reread them because I feel like I need to soak it in a little bit longer.
See, I didn't find Fourth Wing until this last summer.
I'm disappointed that I found it a few months too late because I could have been there for the release, and that would have made me really happy. Like when Iron Flame came out,
I wanted to go to the midnight release so bad.
I missed it by a few weeks, I think. Like I had gotten into it around New Year's, and I think when did Iron Flame come out?
November.
Yeah, so I literally missed it by 2 months. I was so sad because I remember seeing all the hype, and I was like, I have FOMO. And I had just started reading ACOTAR, and I was like just getting like the claws sank into me. Not Tamlin's claws, the claws of something else. For sure.
Ew.
But whenever I first read that, I'm like, okay, I'm starting to get into it. Like I can see the hype, whatever. And then I see Iron Flame, and I'm like, what else am I missing out on? So the FOMO was real.
Speaking of tampon, I'm sorry, Tamlin. Oh, Tammy. Tam.
What do we think about him when you first met him?
I didn't. You know what? I think it was because he was blonde. I just did not like him.
Yeah. See, my younger brother is blonde, and that's the only man that I mean, he's younger than me. He's 22. He's a man, I guess. But it's difficult for me to ever put blonde men into a category of like attractiveness because they all equate back to him. So for me, right off the bat, blonde, I'm like, ugh.
Maybe my brother was blonde too.
It's something Freudian, I swear.
Maybe that's it. Maybe
My
that's because I'm just like dark hair, tall, handsome. I get it.
My one psychology class, that's what it taught me. That's Freud.
Good to know.
I find a way to bring Freud into every single episode, just so you guys know.
Hey, you know what? You learned something in school.
Am I using it correctly?
Maybe.
That's not my business. But I agree with you. Whenever I read Tamlin's character description, I'm like, I guess I can picture like a Hemsworth there.
Well,
I guess I can throw one in, but it's not really going to do wonders for me.
It's like Disney's Beauty and the Beast. Like,
precisely.
This man thinks that he's going to hold this girl in his castle and she's going to be docile and she's going to love it.
And that's why I was kind of like, what is everyone going on about whenever I first read this book? And I don't want to be repetitive if you listen to the last episode, but I really had been kind of catfished at the beginning because I had this power trip, this egotistical thing where I was reading the first book after being like begged and recommended and just beat over the head with all these ACOTAR recommendations. And finally, I read it and I'm like, this is a knockoff Hunger Games, Beauty and the Beast, love child.
Divergent too.
Yeah, and I never read that.
Girl, you got to read that series.
I didn't read it. I was out of my book phase, I think, when that came out.
Oh, it's so good.
I did read like the Aragon series around the same time. I don't know. We're not going to get into all that.
I will say, sidebar, the movie is better than the book in the last one because they actually killed off the main character in the book. Oh. Spoiler alert. But the movies, they don't. The movies, she stays alive. Okay, back to the main topic.
Yeah. Skirt. Okay. So whenever I first read it, I, of course, was judgmental. And I was like, everyone thinks that this is good because they have never actually read a good book. Like, it's all these girls who don't understand true fiction like I do. They haven't read the classics. I'm talking about Harry Potter and Hunger Games.
They just don't understand.
They just don't get it. And obviously I was thinking like my comprehension level, like my standard for what is good material is way higher than theirs. I don't know if you felt the same thing before you read it.
Yeah.
And going through the first couple chapters, I'm like, okay, this isn't good. What are you guys talking about? I obviously just am not like the girls.
Well, it just sounded like the same thing. Like it sounded like the beginning of Hunger Games. We've seen this before. We've seen the girl with the bow. We've seen her kill a wolf. And we've seen her get dragged to a castle by a beast and be held against her will. And it's just to save her family. It's like, I have seen this film before.
You're
next.
Like, okay, they're going to fall in love, I guess. Yes. Awesome. And I think I was trying to get myself like to really be passionate about their love story and feel invested because I wanted to like the book and I wanted the FOMO to pay off. I wanted to have the same reaction as everybody else. So I'm like, okay, who can I cast as Tamlin that's going to make me care about him? And I did my best. I like I said, I threw a Hemsworth in there. Not Liam. Went with Chris.
Yeah, Chris Hemsworth.
That was going to be a Thor. And then later I ended up recasting him mentally because I like Chris Hemsworth too much.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't have him in there.
I couldn't give him a character that I really liked because I had to give him like...
You know who I ended up casting?
Who?
Joe Alwyn.
No way! Oh, that's perfect.
Because I'm like, you know what? I already have the ick for him. He's already public enemy number 1. So if I stick him in Tamlin's role, it's perfect. It's
Joe Alwyn, or what about Jake Gyllenhaal?
But he's not blonde.
He could be.
He could be.
Peeta was blonde.
You're right.
Yeah, Josh Hutcherson was brunette.
I could see it. I had a hard time because I also wanted to picture Henry Cavill in his Witcher outfit as Tamlin, but I really like him. So I threw Joe Alwyn in there, and that's what ended up working for me. But he's not like, you know. But that's okay. Then whenever I had Feyre, like I always try and put myself into the protagonist's shoes. I assume that's how you also read.
Yeah.
And it's different because it's first person, so you can get a little bit more into her head. But trying to read this character, I have such a love-hate relationship with the way that common female protagonists are portrayed because it's always the same, like, strong-willed, take no shit, I'm awesome, I'm a miraculously like good hunter, I'm super hot, all these things.
Just good at everything.
Good at everything, beautiful, naturally.
Of course.
And going through and reading about Feyre, I'm like, ugh, snooze. Like she is the same as everyone else, but I did fall in love with her.
Oh, she had probably one of the best character growth stories besides Nesta.
Yes, besides Nesta. She's going to go ahead and take the cake. But I agree. I think that through the course of rereading this book, I'm seeing how much she's grown because after finishing the series, I'm like, oh yeah, Feyre's awesome. She's multidimensional. She's passionate. She's kind. Like she's strong. All these things. And then you go back and reread how she started and like her fear and how timid she was and not trusting and really everything that she overcame and how much she didn't know. It is just so intense how much she developed. And I don't think I really realized that until now, like on my second read.
Yeah, I don't think we really realized how docile Feyre really was. And that's why Tamlin really liked her. You know, he just wanted to keep her in her castle and paint and be happy and
And
live
at the beginning,
happily
she
ever
wanted
after.
that.
And she wanted that. But without going into ACOMAF too much, she did die under the mountain.
Yeah.
That is the girl she was. And then she becomes this whole other person.
And it's symbolic as well as it is literal. But
yeah.
I think that there's just so much to be said for the way we can all see ourselves in Feyre's shoes at some point where you want the safe option, you want the comfort, and you want someone who maybe doesn't push you to be your fullest person, but they give you this safe little bubble to exist in. And sometimes that's enough.
Yeah,
And
sometimes that's okay.
yeah, and I think that a lot of us marry our Tamlins, and I know that some people are going to just be vomiting into the side trash can, but that is okay. And I think a lot of people marry their Tamlin, and it's healthy. And I
You
think
know
it's
what?
fine.
Healthy relationships, I've also learned, like, you're not always going to get the butterflies. Butterflies is actually anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah, it's your body's reaction to being uncomfortable in an unfamiliar situation.
Yeah.
But I think that we tend to villainize Tamlin because in the story he is actually a villain. And I don't want to say anything too controversial because I think that he does get a little bit abusive towards the next book.
100%.
But I think in a lot of ways, we villainize his character in the first book. And I think that he does do a lot of things out of love. Does it encroach upon her personal freedoms? Yes.
You know where I got the ick for Tamlin in book 1? It was Calanmai.
Yeah.
Because he actually did choose another girl on Calanmai instead of Feyre. Like, if he really liked her and really loved her, he would have, like,
and he tries to play
resisted or been like, no, I'm not going to. I want you.
He tries to play it off like, well, I just didn't want to hurt you. Like, it's too intense. I couldn't have stopped myself. And
like, I wanted you, but I had someone else. It's like, no.
We've all been told that. Like, it's gaslighting.
Yeah.
We've
Literally.
all had that. And whenever I say, I think we have known people that have married a Tamlin and been okay. I mean that in like the loosest way. I don't mean that in a man that cheats on you and locks you in the house. I do not mean that.
No, we don't want that.
I mean that that's why it's such a complex love story, and the love triangle is so beautiful because you start off with two good options. Like, you start off with somebody who like loves her and wants to protect her and that she goes to actual war for. And then you finish up seeing this whole other aspect. Like, you see one man who wants to protect her and shelter her and keep anything bad from ever happening to her. And I think to a lot of women that would be love, and that's okay. And then you also see a different aspect in Rhysand where he comes in and he's like, it's your choice. Everything is your choice. Whatever you want to do.
Yes.
I respect you. I respect your autonomy. And that's all that matters.
I loved Rhysand and his character growth as well. Like, you know, he did start out, you know, he's going to be the villain.
Yes.
Every story needs a villain to hate in the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
But I love a villain that I hate to love because Rhysand, you know, his story turned out to where he was protecting everybody that he loved, and he was doing absolutely everything that he possibly could. And when he got a moment alone with Feyre, he was actually trying to just like protect her and get her away from Amarantha. Tamlin was trying to screw her.
And it's like, are we going to reduce this brave, intelligent, selfless woman to like a closet hookup?
Literally.
In her potential final hour? That was one of the most sad things to me, is that it almost is written in such a beautiful way where you feel like in the moment it's his passion. You feel like, oh my gosh, he just loves her so much. He can't keep his hands off of her. He's so in love with her. And it's not until you look back and you start to see it through Rhysand's perspective, you start to see it from when Feyre's eyes are being opened. And she's like, he had a moment alone with me and he didn't even try and get me out. All he wanted to do was like try and hook up with me.
Yep.
Then it's written in a way that as the reader, you almost uncover the manipulation and the toxicity as it's happening versus... or as Feyre's realizing it, not as it's happening. So I think that's what made it so impactful to me, is that it's like you're living this relationship. So you go through it and you're as enamored with Tamlin as Feyre is. At least you're supposed to be at the beginning of it. And I think that we would all be lying if we're not a little bit like, oh, he loves her so much. Like, you buy into it at the beginning.
I thought it was cute. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
I thought the relationship was cute. I was like, there could be more.
And there's like a slow burn. You're like, okay, I like a slow burn. Even if I don't like him, I like the trope.
Yep.
So you go through this whole situation and you feel them start to like open up to each other, and he starts to soften up and you're like, oh, she's winning him over. This is amazing. And there's this other person introduced and you're like, he's trying to thwart them. He's the villain, like you said. Sidebar, I did see this thing on Pinterest that said, what is a mortal enemy if not a crush that you don't want to have?
Oh.
And I said, that is Rhysand. Oh my gosh.
That is Rhysand, and that is every book boyfriend I've ever had.
Yes, exactly. That's Xaden. That's everybody. That's Hunt. So that's the new definition of mortal enemy. But I think I can't get over how amazing and poetic it is, because you almost discover how awful it is as if you were in the same relationship, and you start to see things, and like the betrayal cuts that much deeper as you're starting to see the layers pull back and have it be like, okay, does he love me or does he want to control me? does Rhysand want to control me, or is he trying to save me? Is he trying to steal me away, or is he like, it's all these things, and it's such a mind boggler that you're reading it and you're like, what am I supposed to believe?
Poor Feyre, she went through it.
She went through it. She could use a Cosmo and a foot massage, probably.
10 Cosmos.
Yeah. Which is, I'm so excited to see how they portray Under the Mountain in a movie or a TV show.
That's why they got to do it well.
They have to do it well.
They can't half-ass it.
I do think that, we've all seen Margot Robbie met with SJM.
Oh my God, yes.
And, unpopular opinion, I do think she would be a great Morrigan. She's not my personal cast for it.
Claire Holt is mine.
All the way.
She has to be. She's the perfect Moore.
Did you watch Vampire Diaries?
Yes.
Rebecca.
That's her.
That is
Moore.
1,000%.
1,000%.
But with Margot Robbie, I feel like if she were to join in like a producer capacity, it could be next level.
I think so.
She is a visionary.
Because she is a producer.
She is a producer. And she said that she doesn't want to act as much in this current stage of her life. She wants to do more producing.
Perfect.
And I think that she would be so good at adapting it to a film.
Oh my God. I think she would just make it next level.
And the fact that it would be, it's a female author and it's a female producer, in the sense that everyone knows that women write characters differently than men write characters. Women stage and show things on TV differently than men do. And that's not that one is better or worse, but I think for a fan base that's so largely female, you want to see it the way that women want to see it. And there are different nuances that make a relationship romantic from a woman's perspective versus from a man's perspective. There are different things that make a scene spicy from a woman's perspective versus from a man's perspective. So I just really hope that we get the rights into the right hands.
Yes, there are different things that you fixate on as a man versus a woman in different romance series.
Yes, absolutely. And I just think that they have one chance to do it right. And I'm really hoping that Margot is involved because she's the people's princess.
Because, they did this with Shadowhunters and they did it with Mortal Instruments. Words, thoughts, and sentences are hard right now. So they did the Mortal Instruments movie.
Right.
That was trash. And then they tried the Shadowhunters series. Not my favorite, in my opinion. It was okay.
Yeah.
If you didn't read the books.
Yeah.
But if you did read the books, you'd think it was trash.
Right.
So... honestly, I'm a little scared to see what they do with ACOTAR, but if they have Margot Robbie on the team, I think it could be something.
Don't get me wrong, I'll try anything. Animated, real life, whatever we're going to go with, I'm going to see it. I'm going to watch it multiple times.
Oh, I'm going to watch it.
We're going to talk about it on the pod.
We're going to watch it.
Yeah. We'll do a live reaction.
Will we love it? That's the question.
So, my favorite character, it's hard to say. I think I liked Lucian a lot because I feel like there's always a relatable best friend in the show, or in the piece of media. So I think that I liked him a lot, not in any kind of romantic sense, just in the sense that like, oh, he's a good character, he's a good like person to bounce things off of. Beyond that, I don't really know who I was loving. I did come around to Feyre at the beginning. It's just hard to get attached to a narrator, I think, until you have any like skin in the game. Towards the end of it, I was like, I would go to war for her.
Oh, seriously.
I would go into the mountain for Feyre.
Because she turns into just such a badass character.
Yeah, and I think it's so incredible because she almost gives up. She's not the kind of person that is just unfailingly strong and powerful and strong-willed and everything. You're like, oh, great. She can just pick herself up out of bed and not get depressed.
Well, and then we find out she can't read.
Exactly. Like, she's flawed. And that's amazing because a lot of times I think they being the creators of mass media, they want the female protagonist to be, they think that strength is she's perfect already. Like she's beautiful, she's funny, she's strong, she doesn't take any shit, she's great. That's not what everyone wants to see because it's not relatable.
No, and it's not realistic.
No. So the fact that she comes out of the gate and like you said, she's illiterate, she's not able to read, she is afraid, she has her mind changed multiple times.
She's not strong.
She's not strong. She doesn't want to be strong. She's terrified most of the time. She wants to give up. And she still perseveres. That's what makes her such a lovable narrator. And then you see her grow and like rise to the occasion. You see her let people in over the course of the series, which will get their own episodes.
Yes, we will. One episode at a time or chapter.
I do feel like there is some place for the kind of book that I thought the ACOTAR was going to be, which is this fluffy fantasy world where you just go into a castle and you have this love story and nothing really ever happens. There's no climax. I think that there's a place for that. And don't get me wrong. And sometimes in my life, I just want to read about like going around like a period piece.
Yeah.
Like you live in a castle, you have this amazing thing. Like would I read an entire book of Nesta and the House of Wind just living? Probably. Because it would be comforting. Yeah. It wouldn't be as strong or as impactful of a book, but I think that the beginning of ACOTAR has the potential to be someone's comfort read. But for me, that's going to have a low rereadability for me.
That'll be like a Frost and Starlight for me. Like,
Yes.
it'll be a cute little comfort read. But, I mean,
Yeah.
ACOMAF is one of my tops.
In my reread, I did skip through ACOTAR. I went straight to Mist and Fury.
Did you?
Just
I would have
because
done the same thing.
I feel like it's just difficult because once you have all this new information, like I can't go back. Like I can't refeel. I can refeel the slow burn of Feyre and Rhysand. Spoiler, but I can't go through. I feel like that's not even a spoiler at this point.
mean, if you're a fan of ACOTAR, that's
You
not
probably
really a
get it.
spoiler. But, I mean, spoiler for all those people.
I just feel like it's almost too difficult for me to go back through and I'm like, ugh.
I will say I did read the Kellenmai, the episode or the scene with Kellenmai, and it hit different.
It did.
It really hit different.
Yeah.
Instead of, a random guy coming up to you
Yes.
trying to save you from these guys, it's there you are. I've been looking
And
for
then
you.
it hits so differently.
And it hits so deep, and it's like, there you are.
I know.
I've been looking for
And
you.
you just think about everything he's been through. It just has so much more.
Oh my
meaning.
god! Oh,
We
it
could-
was so amazing.
Oh my gosh, we could go on and on about Rhysand's character arc, but I feel like that should be in a different episode.
That'll be an ACOMAF for sure.
Are there scenes that stuck with you besides that one?
Oh gosh, the music one. I think when
Yeah.
she's under the mountain and she's torture and pain and she just can't go on anymore, and Rhysand sends her this music
From his home.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh my god, this is the point where I was like, Rhysand's not a villain.
Yeah.
If you're a villain, you are heartless.
Yes.
You have no care for others. You do not care about this poor girl who is in a cell.
Right, he only thinks about what's best for him.
Exactly. He's selfish.
I think it's crazy because reading ACOMAF again, you're seeing the Under the Mountain progression very differently. So when it first happens, you're like, okay, this guy is just here to like kind of further the plot, whatever else, like kind of be a foil. And then you have all the reflection that she does at the beginning and middle, and she's understanding like what he was doing to distract her, things that he was doing that she thought he was just being a prick, but in reality he's trying to take her mind off of things. He's trying to give her some semblance of peace, and just the fact that he was getting her, wasted.
Yeah, the dancing and the wine.
All of that, it's on purpose, like it wasn't just a senseless thing where he's using her as a puppet like you kind of think it is. And that goes back to what I said earlier, where you're uncovering like who the actual villain is as she is. You're not thinking of it in the moment. You're like, oh my gosh, he's taking advantage of her. He's doing all these things. He's like painting her body.
Well, and SJM wants you to think that.
Yes.
That's her plan.
Because then you understand truly like why Feyre makes the decisions that she does. And as she slowly opens up, it's like you're, as a reader, starting to open up to the possibility of him not being that bad as well. So your mind changes as her mind changes. It's just amazing.
Let's talk about the ending.
Okay.
When did you think that, spoiler alert, the mating bond clicked?
I feel like reading it from Feyre's perspective, I don't think it clicked. I think I knew because I had obviously been on the internet, but if I hadn't been online and known that they were going to end up together, I think it would have been later in the series, to be honest with you. And maybe that's just me being bad at picking up foreshadowing, but I thought that he was going to act as more of like a hindrance to her and Tamlin. I didn't know where it was going to go. And it wasn't until the next book that I started to be like, okay, well, obviously he's not the right one for her.
Yeah.
At the beginning of ACOMAF, it's like pretty apparent what's going on, but you're waiting for her to realize it. And then you start to think about Rhysand and you're like, oh, I can see that we're doing a Yui right now. We're doing a whole 180. What about you?
So mine was actually the end of ACOTAR.
Really?
And I'll tell you why. So remember when Rhysand like pulled her outside to like talk to her at the end, and he like tugged on the bond?
Yes.
Then as he was leaving, he kind of like stumbled and then looked completely bewildered. I think that was when the mating bond snapped.
I think you're right. And I think they mentioned that maybe later, like they allude to it, but I didn't pick up on that whenever I was reading it. Like full transparency, I was just like, he's going away. He existed for this book. Something else is going to try and thwart her and Tamlin in the future books. I just didn't think of it as that significant. And then I think whenever she goes and talks to the Serial, which we're going to not spoil that until the next episode.
We love the Serial though.
We love her. But whenever everything happened in the next book, then I'm like, okay, now it's making sense. But before that, it didn't click for me.
I don't know. There were so many parts. I think having the Serial like reveal it was just kind of funny.
Iconic.
It was iconic. Honestly, it's the Serial tea.
It is. And I love what she has become in the fandom. Like, what everyone...
Serial Tea Co.
Yes, I love how we have just taken that and run with it. It makes me so happy that it's just become like a canon thing. Even though she's supposed to be like this scary otherworldly
skeleton,
being.
yeah.
Like terrifying.
Like
No.
ugly. No,
No.
she's a badass.
Yeah, she is. She's a girly for sure. I feel like it's difficult because I don't know. The book is so good on its own, but it is such a setup book that when people read it and they're obsessed with it, I'm almost like, you have seen nothing yet. You have seen nothing yet.
I think it's a perfect first world building book.
Yes.
It sets everything up for Akamath,
Yes.
A Court of Mist and Fury.
Which is when it really gets going.
Is when it really gets going. And that is where we're actually going to end here because we are going to save episode 3 for A Court of Mist and Fury.
Tune
in the
back
meantime, we want to say thank you so much for listening, and to the readers who listen,
And the stars that answer.
have a great night.
Bye.